No, I think. Yeah.
Good. Okay, all right. We're going to call to order our 1,418th Board of Directors regular meeting. And Ralph, you'll lead us to the pledge.
Happy to. Please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Benny, roll.
Chair Mouse,
I am here.
Vice Chair Carhart,
Here.
Director Irwin,
Here.
Director O'Carroll,
Here.
Director Tamani, here, all present.
We move on to our audience public comment on non-agenda items. Any item that is not on the agenda today, any person may address the board on the subject within the jurisdictions of the Fair Oaks Recreation and Parks District. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Any matter requiring board action will be referred to staff or committee for a report and action at a subsequent meeting.
And then just for our one phone participant, if you want to make a comment, press star 9 to raise your hand, and then to unmute yourself, you will press star 6. Doesn't look like anybody has a comment.
Okay. Non-agenda item. All right. Move on to approval of the agenda. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now moving to 6, the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar considered by the board of directors is routine and will be acted upon in a single motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items unless a request is made prior to the time the board considers the motion to approve. Can you get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On to our agenda items. 7.1, our board report from the Fair Oaks Youth Advisory.
Hello, my name is Mohammed, and I'm the chair of the Fair Oaks Advisory Board. Yesterday was our last meeting of the term. We celebrated our accomplishments from this year by playing Foursquare and handing out superlatives. Some notable things we did this year were successful service projects, with the Grange, the Food Bank, and the Parks cleanup groups, all having events and contributing in one way or another. We also volunteered at FORPD events, some highlights being the Easter extravaganza and the Chicken Festival. The next term of board will start in August, and we are all really looking forward to it. It's been a joy to speak at these board meetings, and now continue next term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You were a junior this year, were you? So
Yes.
you'll be a senior next year?
Yeah.
Have you selected your offices for next year yet?
Yes, we have.
What schools are represented?
All the officers are from Bella Vista, and majority of the people in FOIA this year are from Bella Vista, but we do have a few students from Maryland.
Thank you.
And 7.2, discussion and possible action on approval of the Phoenix Park Master Plan. Mike is muted.
Mike, you're muted.
All right, there we are. Thank you. Hey, thank you, board, for allowing me to attend the conference over here for the California Special Districts Association. But what I wanted to do, this item is for the hopefully the approval of the Phoenix Site Master Plan, and that's what we're asking. You'll see a presentation here from Wilson Design, and I do have to apologize for the packet that we sent you. Because of the short turnaround, we didn't have the labeling done, but you should see the labeling in the presentation as Wilson Design does. They're part of this piece. Improvements to Phoenix Park were included in the ballot language for Measure J, which was our $26.9 million general obligation bond measure that passed in November 2018. At your February 15th meeting, you approved, gave us authorization to apply for a land and water conservation grant for the development of Phoenix Park. And at the March 7th meeting, special meeting of the Board of Directors, you authorized staff to put in an application for federal funds through the House and Senate Appropriations Program for park improvements. Both of these funding sources require that a project that receives federal funds that the project be part of a master plan. So that's why we rushed this project through to get to that master plan phase. So the application for the bond was complete. At your March 15th meeting, we entered into an agreement, or allowed us to enter into agreement with Wilson Design Studios to start the master planning process for Phoenix Park, which again would allow us to put in a complete grant application for land and water conservation. Wilson Design led 2 community outreach meetings where the residents had the opportunity to participate in the creation of the plan. The outreach meetings were held at the McMillan Center on April 11th and May 2nd. So just within the last couple of weeks was our last one. You did get, as I mentioned, a packet. In your packet, you did have the master plan without the labeling, but you will be seeing the labeling tonight. And with that, if you have any other questions, I'll answer them now, but I will pass this on to Wilson Design.
Good evening, directors, staff, community members. My name is Keith Wilson, Principal Landscape Architect at Wilson Design Studios. Landscape architecture, as Mike mentioned, we brought on a couple of months ago, a short time ago, to help you through the process of this grant application in this park. I'll reiterate at first here what Mike said, which is an apology for not having this first exhibit in your packet. This gives you more context to the actual park as it exists today. It's been a part of our presentations the entire time that it wasn't included in the first partial packet. So what I'd like to do, regardless of that fact, you haven't seen this yet, is to take you through the improvements that we see happening on this park, looking at the entire site for context. And I'm going to specifically only talk about the improvements that came up through our community engagement, talk about the improvements, where those areas are, and what areas on this plan came up in our discussions with the community but don't show up in the 2 main areas that we really designed. When we get to those, I'm going to have Karen Coffin with our office, who's project manager of this project throughout the whole entire process, present those 2 exhibits. So let's start off with the 2 areas that have a color on here. This area over here is item A. The legend over here is numbered. All the numbers that do not have color in them correspond to existing elements that are in the park. So they are what you currently have. My assumption is that you guys are roughly familiar with the park. I am happy to go through those elements for you to help you with context, but my guess is, because we're here to talk about the improvements in relation to this grant, that we'll focus just on that. To that end, these areas over here that have a yellow on it, they're non-numbered. Sorry, are highlighted in yellow. They've got letters on them instead of numbers. I'll take you through what those are. So the 2 primary areas we were asked to study on this master plan were area A, which is over here. It's basically the existing unimproved parking lot that services the community garden, and then obviously across the way, the dog park. So it's fairly heavily used. We know it's also very heavily used. The athletic fields get used at the same time. And then the other easy one to see here in purple is area B. We call that the open space area. This is roughly a 4.5 acre site that's unimproved relatively. What it does have on it is a lot of stockpiled soil that was left over from the White Mesa. So there's considerable, I would say, 4 to 6 foot pile of soil on top of the site that's uncompacted, and we'll probably talk about those impacts when we get to questions at some point and what they mean for this overall site. But those are really the crux of where our attention is. But I will go over a couple of other things that are represented by these yellow dots that you see throughout this plan. Item C in here is additional table and chair or bench locations. One of the items that came up through our community outreach was that there was a general lack of places to sit. So we've identified 6 different locations on this plan that are represented by the circles that have the C letter in them, and they're highlighted. And those are areas where we see a small interaction with, just a concrete pad and a picnic table and or a bench. It's a small moment just for some seating. So we roughly distributed those throughout the plan. They are, of course, included within the developments that we're going to show you for proposed areas A and B. But because they don't show the context of the whole site, we want to make sure this will be part of the grant package as well. These were the wishes of the community, so we want to make sure we call them out. In addition to that, letter D is additional seating area, but with a formalized shade structure over the top. So what we mean by that is it's basically just scale of magnitude. It's a different intervention or improvement in the park. So you'd probably have something like a 24-foot square plus or minus shade structure with more than one picnic table, the ability for people to gather, potentially a barbecue element. Also, one of them is shown very close to your existing playground area. There was a lot of input about improving the playground area, not just from a seating and shade standpoint, but also potentially maybe adding to the elements for the kids to play on in that area. So
Could you point out where those two?
yeah, sure. And then right here where my hand is, if you can see that. Located roughly in the southeast of the park. Can you see the movement? Okay, great.
Oh, okay, over there.
Yeah, I apologize. It's a little bit tough to see at this scale. It's a big park. Sorry, I mean, one second.
That's a very
Sure.
underutilized area there.
Yeah, and to that point, we actually, there's two of these locations that we're calling, just worry about this.
Where's the other one up there?
They're close, so you'll see one of them is, here, next to the play area. And then one of them, Ian's. It's okay, don't worry. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. And the other one is up here a little bit farther to the north and east and services the small parking lot area that's over on the boundary of the park and really has more of a connection to the vernal pool area and the nature area because there really isn't a lot that's developed in that area. So those are the two areas that we suggest.
That around a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Right here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you got it. In addition to letter D, E is additional sidewalk routes and connections. We're really only proposing one. Truth of the matter is there are really great connections throughout most of the park. There is one element over here where the existing bathroom is. There's a path that goes over to this open field and it just ends kind of in the middle of nowhere. We want to extend that pathway and connect it down here south to the southern pathway that runs through here. And you'll also notice those letter C's, which is a couple of bench moments or seating areas. We originally showed this pathway connecting to the east to the ball field over here, right up against the south edge of the VFW property. And we received some pretty specific input that was a really tight space, considering how that field is used for soccer when it is used, and that there was concern that that walk was going to have to be right on the property line if it would even fit. So we figured we would make this southerly connection as a gesture of that on this master plan. And then lastly, this was an item that came up at our very first meeting and got several votes. Is we're identifying this area up here next to the existing parking lot up here in the north central location as a potential spot to build a fitness center area. So not an outdoor. Instead of the old school, what we do call a park course, where you would have maybe 6 or 7 different spots that would be distributed. A lot of the current manufacturers are now making almost like a gym floor kind of scenario where you can really put that money into one space where it can be used in multiple ways as opposed to circuiting. That allows people of lots of different generations. We know you have a wide generation of use on this park. You use it without having to access, a couple of miles of trails to get there. So that space right there is relatively unimproved currently. It's flat, easily accessible to parking lots. We feel that that's where that will happen.
It is to be the site of a giant heritage oak there.
It looks like it because you've got bark mulch and
That's why.
some shrubs. Yeah. I will mention a couple of other things that aren't going to show. This list here, which I'm sure you can't read, and I can't even get this thing to show, are some additional priorities that came up during our meeting that we don't want to ignore these comments because they're important overall to the master plan. There are 6 additional items, I think you know the next one. They're hard to graphically represent their kind of generalities and things that we heard very consistently. Number one is to improve drainage, specifically around walkways, paved areas. There was a lot of complaints of localized drainage issues. Without knowing more about the infrastructure and doing a proper survey on the whole thing, we don't know exactly where all those ties are. But we do know that enough of them exist. We know they exist adjacent to the areas maybe that we're focusing on. So that's something that could definitely be done. And it's a pretty consistent challenge that comes up in some of these older parks when we get settled. In addition to that, we have improved the irrigation system. That was another one that came up as well. There's a lot of concern about efficient irrigation, not wasting water. There were questions about doing too much turf and wasting water in that way. Our answer to that, unfortunately, is simply that on the new areas, we will bring new infrastructure in, of course, off of the existing connection to the park. But infrastructure like that's really hard to go in and literally fix. Specifically, people were asking to improve irrigation around existing trees. Back in the day when these trees were planted, trees were irrigated with the overhead spray that irrigated the turf. For that reason, you don't get deep water, you get a lot of surface roots. Current technologies in irrigation allow you to do that quite easily, and actually state law requires at this point that you have separate irrigation valves that are isolated from the trees. We can do that in the new areas, we can't do that for the old areas, but we still wanted to make sure that we pointed out that there's some concerns about the irrigation system.
Can I mention something about that?
Sure.
You know, historically, this was called the last century bald spot. One of the problems we have, and Sean will back me up on this, the soccer fields on the south end there are over a layer of hard pan. They're kind of down in a swamp. If we're going to redo the irrigation, we really need to rip that hard pan and do something about soil, maybe add soil or rip it up and mix some new soil. That, I would think that should be identified, especially since we're going after a land and water conservation grant, because that would really promote water conservation.
Thanks for that. A couple other things. There were a lot of comments to improve signage, legibility, and clarity, not only for wayfinding, but specifically we had some comments for more signage and maybe educational signage that could be incorporated into the vernal pool and the nature areas. That's a given for new areas of development for us, so we've incorporated those things into the master plan for areas A and B. But overall, we want to make sure that we speak to that as well. And then two other items. There was a lot of talk, not surprisingly, about lighting. There was talk all the way from lighting ball fields to lighting ballpark to parking areas, and then all the way down to low kind of pathway lighting. The information we were given is that the history of this park is that it's until the sun goes down and there's not an interest at the board level to add lights on ball fields specifically in this particular park. We would, however, suggest if funding does allow in the future, some lower bollard lighting along the pathways, because those paths do get heavily used. And technology these days allows you to use solar and to do it in a really unobtrusive way instead of going in with 18 or 20-foot posts. It's also a lot less expensive. So we're adding that onto the list as well. And we don't want it to be lost on you guys that the community is really pushing, certain segments of this community are really pushing for more lighting. They see it as something that they need for this site.
One of the things that came up in our previous hearings with the public when we were considering doing something different on that bare spot, the neighbors to the northwest were very concerned with the lighting as it would affect them. So,
yep. I know of one resident in particular. We've been kept, apprised of the emails that have come back and forth, so that we're all on the same page with the district. We know of one person in particular that has some real severe concerns about elevations, views of fences, parking, lighting, etc.
sounds like the same citizen.
Yeah, I don't have that person's name, memorized, but it's a concern, and I know it's in the records as well. And for what it's worth, we have, we're always walking that line, right, between what our clients and what the district is going to support and what they can fund and do with what the neighborhood wants. So there's always a little bit of a tightrope walk on that. But for what it's worth, we didn't ignore those inputs. Like we specifically looked, maybe too much at that proximity and ways to fiddle, around with our line work to make sure that, yeah, if we were improving adjacent to the property, that we were at least being, respectful about the fact that there was a sensitivity there. So you will notice on the sign for that. I can show you the house. I don't know who it is, but we've been very careful to take a lighter approach.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
It's shielded lighting and directional.
Yep.
We can deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing, which is a general one that's always going to come up in park sites of this age, is simply improvement of maintenance. There was, we got a lot of input that essentially said, look, we've got great amenities already. What we need is to spend money on those current amenities and make sure that they operate better and are cleaner. Let's do that. We heard that emphatically. We also heard more parking, and we will see in the results here on the final plan that Karen's going to step in and present that we feel we've addressed that emphatically. So those are the items on this master plan. For what it's worth, this will be a part of the exhibits that we include with the district and the grant request. They serve really for context more than anything else. And depending on what the district wants, if there's an approval of the other two plans you're about to see for A and B, we can throw that line work onto this, take that screen color off, incorporate it graphically in this, so you guys have at the end of the day a full master plan that you can push forward.
Can I ask you a question? And I didn't attend the outreach meetings, but I was talking with Mike. Was there some requests from some people for pickleball courts?
Yeah. And so, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Along that line, I've long talked to Mike about the area just south of the garden parking, where you have that little stub of concrete path that goes nowhere, goes to the east of the restrooms.
Yep.
I've always thought that would be a good spot either for parking or for pickleball courts or half basketball courts or something. It's a very underutilized space. If this is a master plan that's supposed to be for the next 10, 20 years, I'm wondering if that's something we should look at and maybe indicate on the plan. I don't know if you concur that's a good spot, but if people ask for it and we didn't at least show it in a master plan, I think we would do something.
Well, I can tell you this. So we had about 24 people come to the very first meeting. At the very first meeting, it was an item that came up that got a decent amount of votes. Our response was to include it in our plans for Area B, the larger purple area. Because Area A, for all intents and purposes, is essentially a parking lot. It's formalizing the parking, helping with drainage. There's some severe drainage issues because of the cross slope of that site, and really making a more efficient use of that space for parking, which is definitely needed. So Area B, because that's the direction we were given, is where we were trying to put it. All right. I believe pickleball and basketball, two-court, amenities were included in both of the concepts we presented at meeting 2. We had about 70 people come out to meeting 2, which is the opposite of what we normally see. There was some confusion about. We heard that a lot of people thought that they could come to either meeting as opposed to it being, sequential. Please come to the first, then you're going to see this in the second. So I think a lot of those people at meeting 2 felt like this was what they were being presented was fairly cooked and without their input. So what we got at that meeting was a lot of people that said, I don't want pickleball. I don't want these court elements. We were emphatically hearing from the group that night that they wanted parking and they didn't want to add additional amenities to the overall park site. They would focus on parking, which was a weakness, and they wanted to make sure that they improved the existing amenities, which is a very different kind of message. But if you count the number of voices between 24 and 70, that's how we arrived here. And so what you will see on the plan that Karen's going to show you for Area B is no pickleball. In fact, we don't even have basketball on. The reason specifically for pickleball is because in discussions with Mike and staff after that meeting, pickleball, typically you're going to have 4 to 6 courts. It's going to bring in some tournaments. It's going to bring in groups, and that has an impact to parking. It has a totally different impact to parking than does a basketball court, especially if you do like a half court. So a basketball court could certainly fit, but what we heard in the second meeting was no. And we were really concerned going into this meeting with the tight turnaround that we wanted to present them with something that was reflective of what their input was. And so it's off, but I can tell you that Pickleball was an item that came up in the first meeting. It had interest. There may be people here that also, want to say their piece about pickleball. It's very popular right now. And essentially, it takes the space of the tennis court to get 4 courts. This space you're talking about, it's a little mounded. The grading's not great. I also happen to know in this spot here is where your point of connection for the irrigation system is. And so it's a challenging spot, but to your point, there are other spots around here where you could put it that are outside of area A and area B if you feel like putting it in. And it's a fairly easy item to add in.
Well, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because
Sorry to go
I'd
long,
heard it
but-
come up and it sounded like maybe the second group disenfranchised the first group because parking is definitely, whether it's the village or Phoenix Park, it's
a challenge.
all that's on people's mind.
Yeah.
That
We get
are
that, yeah.
county roads.
Right.
So, yeah, I just thought another thing here is this plan is not immutable for the next 20 years. If we wanted to add
Correct.
something, we could find the spot.
Add also that as part of the records from those first 2 meetings, those votes and that input are in those records. So it's not like they're going away and those voices haven't been,
So I have a follow-up to, Keith, to what Ralph was asking. So the people that want pickleball, are they neighborhood people? Is the pickleball organization? Are the people that don't want pickleball existing users that don't want to see any disenfranchised?
Correct.
Or you get
Yeah, what we.
cutting down on
My
the
take,
use area.
we weren't approached by a formal group. My take was that people that were in favor of pickleball were normal residents that were looking for a facility where they could go and play pickleball. This wasn't a formal group that was looking to do a tournament style kind of thing. And the feel I got from the people that were against it was that they were simply responding to the existing park and wanting the funds that they knew were going to be limited spent on the number one thing they needed, which was parking. And their feeling was that if other things that brought additional people in were added to an area that was already underparked, that was something that they would prefer not happen.
Yeah, was it though the people that were wanting more parking, saying parking was the main issue? Were they though mainly from a user group?
No.
Okay.
Pretty broad. I mean, I would have to say that generally speaking, the biggest main user group out there is going to be Little League. It's going to be baseball. Those people have needs when they have baseball going on out there. When the fields are those uses overlap and cause a lot of challenges with parking. So I happen to know they are a more organized group, and they tend to be better at voicing their opinions than pickleball people. But my perception is not that this was an organized group that was saying no to specifically pickleball. That wasn't my feeling. Was it yours, Karen?
No, nobody identified themselves as part of the group. So everybody was just a vision that looks like they
Derek, if I can speak on that because I'm familiar with some of the people that were there that evening. The majority that were speaking up against it were part of the user group. Yeah, they didn't identify themselves as a user group there, but I am familiar with who they are.
Were people who like bikes?
There were not.
No. As a matter of fact, the bike area is a big part of this design solution. We didn't have a whole lot of people necessarily pushing for one way or the other. It makes a lot of sense. It's an existing use. We came up with a really great way of making it happen and making the other improvements for the other user groups. But yeah, I would agree, it wasn't a super hard push.
You said votes of record for what people were. So do we have anything in here that kind of shows us 20 people for this?
I haven't here. You have posted on after each of these meetings, we put the notes together, including the votes for all these items. I believe, were posted on the district's website. They weren't great.
Is there a reason?
And I can forward
more presentation or the documents that we give to us?
simply because at the first meeting, there were 4 different votes that happened. It was a sequential experience, right? So the first meeting, there were 4 different votes that happened, specifically on 4 different areas to gain some consensus. There was only 1 vote at the second meeting. That vote was simply, which of these 2 concepts do you want to go with? We've since done that from that 1 vote. So we feel like that input of the votes was early on. It got us to meeting 2. So in my opinion, I'm happy to share it. It was part of the data that got us to where we presented in 2. But it was really the input that we got in meeting 2 that led us to where we are today. Because what we presented in 2 was already informed by all those folks that happened.
A couple other items. One, you're probably aware the Little League was there long before we acquired the park, as was the VFW. And since the board really didn't get any input on things, there's some things that have been nagging us for years, at least me, and I've mentioned this to the board and to Mike before. We have a lot of peripheral area out on Sunset, a lot of lawn that is totally underutilized.
Yep.
And I've always thought that there might be some opportunity to use that for parking. I don't know if we've looked at the use of that strip, but it's a lot of lawn we maintain for nothing but an aesthetic front yard. So I don't know, in a master plan, I'd like ideas about how we better utilize that. Second of all, I'll wait till we get the parking thing, because I got a couple of comments on the parking. But when I first looked at this and all we saw were the 2 plans for mostly parking, I thought, wow, we're taking Green Park and we're loading it with parking just to satisfy that perceived need. And so my thought was, this is a master plan. It doesn't mean we're going to go for the money to build all of it at once. We may take the easy spots and add parking. Obviously, the garden parking is no brainer, but there's also the perimeter parking along the street by the purple area there. And then there's the other area around the back of the little league there. So I guess those are fairly easy. Mike pointed out that a lot of the use we want to do with the purple site there is constrained by the fact that it was never properly compacted. And one of the things I wanted to ask is, can we build a bike track and that kind of thing on that soil, or it's going to be extremely expensive to go in and mitigate that?
Yeah, the short answer to that, number one, I would say that was a major element that we talked about during meeting number 2. That was information that the people that came to meeting number 1 unfortunately did not know about. So the people in meeting 2 were informed because the concepts that they were seeing had evolved the BMX track moved over into Area B, and a lot of people wondered why that was. Fact of the matter is, developing any of Area B that's got this stockpiled soil on it is going to be more expensive than it would have been prior to that soil being there. We have to assume, number one, it's be almost impossible to come in there and simply compact all of that to build an entire parking lot or an athletic facility, for instance. But a lot of what's in that soil needs to be pulled out. So it needs to be screened. And you're probably going to lose 50% of it when you do screening. So you need some screening operations. You need to move some soil around. Then you need to compact relative to whatever the use is, the areas that you're going to develop. One of the advantages to putting the bike area over there is to take a good chunk of that acreage and to not have to do all that remediation. We also showed limited parking because of the same reason at community meeting number 2. We used front-end parking instead of full lots because we knew that was a less costly and a less impactful way to do it. So we were making moves to try to, help with the cost. The numbers that I'm familiar with, and I ran some of the calcs on my own, you're looking at probably, if you were to just take this whole site, rip all that stuff off, screen it, and have it ready to build, you might be into $750,000 just to do that, which with any budget is kind of a budget buster, right? So we're trying to move around the edges of that the best we can and get everybody what they want. But yeah.
My short question is really, can we build some sort of bike facility on that? That's a question for Garrett too, without doing that. I mean, if it's like our dirt park right now, subsidence and things like that wouldn't be a problem. But I do notice where you put the parking, if I recall, there was no swale brought in those areas.
Correct.
The swale is.
Those are edges where it was very low.
Yeah, very, very little was done there. It's that big pile in the middle.
Yes. And the short answer to your question is yes, it can be done. It's going to be the easiest way to improve that area. It's the lowest impact cost. But you're still gonna have to screen some of it. You can't just, get out there and move it around and put kids on bikes jumping off of it. Because there are elements in there, there's pieces of concrete, there's gonna be stuff. There's nothing toxic in there, but there's road material and base material and stuff you're not gonna want underneath the surface of the dirt.
Have we identified material like that? I watched while that went in, it looked like early soil, but I guess my question is, are we going after the money? This might not be for you, but are we going after the money that would allow for that remediation as part of the thing? Otherwise, if we're not getting that money, we can't do anything with it. Is there a use that we can make of that in the interim?
We have made assumptions and costs on a draft budget for both these areas that include that remediation as part of the cost of development parks based on these measurements.
And we think that that'll be included in the application.
Yes, I think it should. Yes.
Yeah, it does have an element of land and water conservation. That's, I'm sure, is a criteria. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions about the master plan before I turn this over to Karen?
I have a question, but it's not necessarily about the master plan. So Ralph, when we did the deal with the county and we allowed them to bring all that scrap material, what was the quid pro quo? Was there one, or you just need?
I can't remember. I think there was a quid pro quo.
Yeah,
Sean.
Sean answered, yeah.
I believe it was the repaving of Crouton there.
That makes sense. We still have 55,000 per share. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just the repaving, but also the regrading for it, for the drainage, as well as for the curbing and stuff like that along there to contain the stormwater. So we're within compliance on stormwater.
And the agreement was with the county or the contractor or both? You remember?
I can't recall, but I believe it was with the county, but I'd have to look.
County's agreement was with the contractor. Yeah, I mean, whoever came up with that one. Was it Tiger?
I have just a question. Well, how did we get to 2 meetings before this, or to create this, the 2 outreach meetings? How was that decided to have 2 outreach meetings in Progressive National?
Yeah, we were asked by Mike to put a proposal together to assist with doing the outreach, putting the master plan together to support the grant application. So what we had to start with was, when's the grant application due? Which is June 1st. Today's May 17th. So we immediately went back to where we were. I think we were in late March when that happened. And we said, how many meetings can we effectively pull off? My experience as a landscape architect, typically it's a 3-meeting process. The first meeting is to inform everybody about what's there and to get a wish list going. The second meeting is to put together plans and draw and get creative ideas, essentially with the same group of people to kind of build on the consensus that was created through ideas in the second meeting and then in the first meeting. And then the third meeting is to present the actual plan. So in this case, because of the time crunch, this would be that third meeting, which is, I think, why some of the public was here, to make sure that their voices are heard. So we were only able to we had about 3 weeks in between each of these meetings. We got 2 weeks between the last meeting and this one here. And we have from today until the 1st to make sure that we make any revisions or changes to it that are requested and get the number together for you guys so you can put that on the grant application.
I will say, I wish we would have had another one, and I don't. I think there was a lot of confusion. I heard from one community members did go to the second one, not understanding. I didn't understand that one was really the one, and then the second is, do you like this? So this is kind of the direction.
We have heard a lot of that.
And so I'm not really sure what happened, but I would just caution the district on that approach next time, because I don't think that was to our benefit. And I definitely think it weighs things a little bit different, and I wish I could hear more from our community about that. So I feel that.
I appreciate the time constraint that the park district and you were under to do this. My approach is more like Wilson Isopano group, where you have charrettes and you get some input from the agency first. I mean, it would have been nice rather than critiquing it at this point after the public has been kind of told this is what we're going to do. If we had been consulted first for our ideas and then throw that into the pot that goes to the outreach meetings. I would have rather had my input early on to provide background and problems and things like that. But under the time constraints, I think we got to go with what we've got.
I don't think that you would talk to a person that can be with my team or the district that wouldn't have wanted some more time.
Yeah.
We do feel like we've arrived at a really good plan, having said that. And we feel like it responds to what the community was asking for. And we did have direction from staff, of the district, what the wish list was essentially. But, regardless of what a district or a city wants, we have to go through that process and we have to hear what the community has to say and we have to respond to that. Sometimes that doesn't always align. And sometimes it doesn't align over really major things that become fights, and sometimes it's no big deal. We had a mixture of this.
Well, let me say that I think the plan is good. It's just, it could have been more complete if we had presented other problems we have to deal with. But again, this is not a master plan for the next century. It's a master plan for the next 10 years, and it's for a specific purpose. So I don't have a problem. I have some comments on the parking.
Okay. All right. Karen's going to start with Area A, which is pretty simple and straightforward. Probably most of the discussion is going to be on Area B. I'll stick around, so if there's questions, I'll assist on it.
Good evening, my name is Karen Kaufman, I'm a landscape architect. Thank you for having us here this evening. So this is what we are calling Area A. It's the parking lot currently unimproved, and what we are, I'll just walk you through the different callouts here, and I apologize that you can't really see the legend here, but basically, number one is the existing roads. So we have Maya Street here and Treetop Way here. This is what basically we're paving the existing parking lot. So this whole area, including this. Sorry, this is a little challenging with the smells. Including this piece here, which is currently a transit area. That is, so this is the, oh no, I'm sorry, number two is the paved parking lot. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading it. This is the existing parking lot here. 3 is the existing community garden, so that's this whole area here. It's sort of an inverted L. 4 are the existing concrete pathways. So you have this one here that goes along Maya Street, and then some that are across the street by the dog park and by the restroom. But in this whole area here, there are currently no existing paved pathways. And we saw a lot of people just kind of crossing the street haphazardly, lots of kids running around, and there was clearly a need for some defined pathways. So those are the existing conditions. We'll now go into what we are proposing. This paved parking lot, which is what I was describing before. This whole area, including this portion here that's currently a planting area. Around this, you'll see paved pathways. There's one on the north side here that connects to Meyer Street and to the existing walkway here. There's also along the west side of the parking lot here, then crosses the entryway to the parking lot, and then would cross the street to join the pathway that's across the street, and there's that this thing is currently blocking. The pathway then continues east and crosses this connector road here, and then will continue on this side of that connector road, and then over to the east portion into the other areas of the park. Outside of the main entrance to the garden, we're showing a concrete plaza. This would be an area for tables and chairs, also a drinking fountain, which was one of the items that was requested by the community, and an area for storage of materials. Currently, there are piles of mulch and compost just outside of the fence that then end up spilling out of the area into the street and into the parking area. So we are showing this as an area where materials can be stored, as well as outside of this. There's another gate right here. So outside here, there's another concrete area where materials can be stored.
So what is happening in that concrete area? It looks like you could drive over part of it and
So,
quite a large bed.
So right here, this is a green waste bin or waste bin. And so there's a concrete apron that is required for that. So that's what, is that what you're referring to?
It's referring to number 7 in just the large space.
That whole gray square there.
Yeah, so that's what I'm referring. That's where tables and chairs, people were requesting places to sit in this area. Probably put up some umbrellas for some shade, but we didn't want to do any shade features in here because then it would affect the sun in the
So it's
garden.
all concrete.
Yes.
And you have to have the concrete instead of asphalt in front of it also. I'm just wondering if pavers might be a little more, that's a big.
Well, that's an option.
concrete.
Yeah, this is just a master plan level, and we're not really, we're saying concrete, but it's certainly added another level of detail.
Yeah, that would come in the detail.
Yeah.
Now, question, what are your dimensions on your parking spaces and your aisle width?
The spaces are 9 feet wide and 18 feet deep, and then there's 24 feet backup space.
Sounds good. You don't have any wheel stops. You have curbs that the bumpers can go over.
Yeah.
Good. They're nothing but trash tracks. So one comment I had on this, I spent my whole career in doing parking lots. So the area there that is currently planting, you've got 2 entrances, 2 roads that come in from the park road there.
This actually is not an access way here. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, there isn't a drive-through there?
No,
Okay.
that would be.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You have 8 spaces in there, and there's a lot of newly planted trees. I'm just wondering why we segregated that out, and not just made this crossroad also a parking lot entrance. In other words, get rid of the island between them, extend on the east end of the other parking, probably you could extend 3 or 4 spaces in there and just leave it straight through and not have it quite so fussy and leave the planted island that's there.
For several reasons that I wanted to help with this.
And if this is the approved master plan, it wouldn't preclude doing those kind of adjustments in the contract drawings.
That's correct. There's a whole process of design development has to happen. Things funded and it gets into a consultant's hands to take it further. But to your question, there's 2 big reasons why we did that. Reason number 1 is that item number 4, the pathway that comes down along Maya Street, it simply ends. It just kind of ends. It doesn't connect to anything. In addition to that, there are 3 existing gates at this community garden. One of them is located right there at the end of that path. It just ends. So even though that's a nicely landscaped area, there's nothing happening there. There's landscape, there's trees in it. What we heard during our meetings was, well, it sure would be nice to have areas of concrete outside these gated spaces, because right now there's only one spot, and that's the one inside the inverted L, where we can effectively have materials dropped, where it's not like a long way for someone that's working in the garden to be able to wheelbarrow that material back. And specifically, the gate that's out there on Maya, because of that landscape area, that's a good 40 feet. That gate is like a good 40 feet from the curb. So if someone was actually trying to drop it off, there is no curb break there. There's no ability to pull a truck of any kind up and do an onload, offload kind of thing. So what we did was we designed the parking lot to create a dead end spot in there that could get us some more parking, which was the other thing people were really pushing us on. And what we liked about this is that allowed you to actually create a path that's off of Maya, that would take an internal loop to the parking lot and could get somebody over to there. Then we can simply make a nice, easy improvement, providing that drop area for people that want to use that gate for that area of the community park. So,
But there'd be nothing to preclude the access from the park road straight in there, just basically.
other than a curb cut
Just
and
have
putting a
a-
drive, other than a curb cut and
Yeah,
putting a
curb cut,
driveway.
little pavement.
Sure.
Yeah. I just, I don't know. Okay, so that's fine.
I'll just finish walking you through the elements we have here. So we are showing a reorientation of the main entrance to the garden, just an angled double gate there with a trellis on top of it to accentuate the entrance there. And then the waste bin, I already mentioned that. And then a lot of these, well, pretty much almost all of them, these, except for these, the ones on the north side and this plant over here, these would all be biofiltration centers, meaning that they would pick up the stormwater that sheet drains off of the parking lot and then filter the water and allow it to percolate into the soil, and whatever does not percolate will then be connected by drain to connect to this soil over that daylight's down there and then big culvert down there to the west.
Have we looked at, most, about 25 years ago, or 20 years ago, we put in, probably 25 years ago, we put in permeable paving in all of our parks. Is that something we've looked at this time, or is that just way too expensive?
It would be more expensive, undoubtedly, from asphalt. It's something that's come up. But at the master plan level, aside from plugging in a more expensive per square foot number to bump that number up, from a funding standpoint, it's just a material selection that we have very deep.
Is it a wash with doing
Bioretention?
Bioretention area?
No, that's way more expensive. Landscape is way less expensive to actually do that filtration. Yeah.
I still have a question. Is there not a second exit out onto the park road?
No, there's
There's
not.
not.
There's not.
There's not. So there's just one entrance and exit there?
Yes.
Correct.
That's another reason why I think it ought to open up to that whole connecting road. That's kind of a bottleneck there for that much parking.
So speaking of
I want to be able to get out the other side a little bit.
how much parking is there? How many spaces?
There's 129.
Our estimate currently off of, we know that a non-formalized field area is just not going to get an efficiency to it. People just kind of figure out what they're doing. My estimate off of looking at Google Maps is that you're probably getting between 80 and 100 out there, the way it is. So this is gaining you, in my opinion, at least a couple dozen parking spaces. I do know that after meeting number 2, based on the input we got from the neighborhood, that most people didn't think that this was going to add any parking. It was just improving parking that was already there. So we're really not considering this as a net gain. It's just formalizing it and making it easier for people to access, and actually providing some amenities for people that operate in the gardens. It's an amenity that's treated fairly with everybody else.
For either, and you'll talk about the next one, but just because this is only dirt and whatnot, electric vehicle parking, has that been thought about in either one? We just.
So I was just going to say that level of detail, and I was just going to mention this too. So I said it's 129 spaces as we've laid it out. When this actually gets further along the design process, we're going to have to take into account accessible spaces, which take up more space. So those are going to eat up some of the spaces. Additionally, we'll need to figure out EV charging. So those things will affect the number.
That's
of
more
spaces.
next stage, that's not at this stage, that's the point.
Yeah.
Right, and we did have discussions with Mike early on about the need for, we asked the question, utility-wise, what are we bringing in? What do we have? We know we have water that goes through there. Luckily, the point of connection to the park is very close. That's number Drainage is super important. That infrastructure is essentially there. We can design this drain to it. The last one would be electricity. I don't know that they have any. We talked about electricity more related to parking lot lights, if that was a request. And given this particular park, that was a no, that there was no intended overnight parking for lights.
So there's not lighting
there is
in
no-
this new parking lot.
That is correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Or maybe
Side-
you probably ought to put in conduits just for future retrofit.
But that can be down the line.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The idea is not to bring in an additional service connection, put in a split box, put in a panel. The only thing we would need for this essentially is to plug in an irrigation controller, add it to the master system that's already there and literally across the street.
So what are we gonna do with all the boulders that look like marbles? Are we gonna reuse them, take them out, bury them so they don't look so weird? You have a plan for that? There's a lot of.
Don't have a plan for the boulders.
No.
Shall we move on to area B? Okay.
I don't know if we've contracted with you for the next phases or we're waiting and see if we get the grant and then worry about it. Most of my comments for the next phase.
Okay, so this is what we were showing on the full site plan is area B and the existing bike park here. So it's
Larger.
it's larger, yeah, it's larger than it originally was. So rather than walk you through the existing elements, I'm just going to jump into what we're proposing. Okay. So this area here would be a bike park and pump track. This is what we're calling the west side of the parking lot, and that has 106 spaces. This is the east side parking lot with 183 spaces. We're showing concrete pathways that connect to the existing pathways throughout the park. And I apologize, but I can't really, it's hard for me to point them out to you here, but there are basically along the north and west side of the parking lot here, there's a walkway. There are walkways that go through this area here to this plaza. There are paved walkways going through this whole area and connecting the parking lots to the existing pathways and to this parking lot down here, the existing parking lot.
These would all be net gain spots, right? Yeah, so
Right.
not-
What was the total you said of parking for both of those sites together? What was the total?
289.
Now, does that, couple of comments. One, where you've got the parking is good because the area around the Little League area, I don't think has ever been filled. It's the natural grade.
Correct.
Yeah,
The other one, the swale that's around the road has never been filled either. All the dirt basically went up on that brown spot there.
That's correct, yes.
And so that's pretty good. What are those other structures there? Those might be.
so I'll just keep walking you through this if that's.
Yeah.
Okay, so this area here, that's sort of the yellow zone, this is a play area for ages 2 to 12. And then there are areas for picnic tables throughout the site as well. Included in the play area is a minor water feature or water play feature. And there are a couple shade structures. So you were asking what these are. This and this are 24 by 24 shade structures, which can accommodate up to 32 people comfortably beneath those. This building here is a restroom. There was a lot of input from the community that more restroom and in addition to the upgraded restrooms, more restroom was needed in the park. There's in between the parking areas and these amenities are some open green spaces. There's a couple of drinking fountains. One is in this plaza here, and one is right over here.
So
And
those
this,
areas being structural would have to have some soil stuff done. It looks like
Yes.
they're on bad soil there.
Yes, absolutely.
Just the area, just the immediate area, they'd have to work on putting some foundations there. So that's good.
yeah. In this, so there's a couple of plazas that we're showing. Here is one, and there's another one here that have access to the bike park. And then this one, we're showing some bleachers for viewing. And then there are some seating areas around as well. So there's one here, there's one. I apologize, this is challenging to see. I can't really see it.
There's a few.
There's a few around. So basically, we put some benches around the paved walkways. We put a bunch of picnic tables around in the shade in the plazas and positioned so that they are good for viewing the bike park.
How much larger is the bike park compared to what it is now?
So that's an interesting question. So it's actually, if you look at the fence line of the existing bike park, it's 1.3 acres, and that is what this is. But the difference is that what we are showing here, the fence line that we're showing here, is pulled in pretty tight, not super tight, but closer to the trails that we've shown. Now, I'd like to also mention that this is just a graphic representation of a bike park. This would be designed by, yeah, yeah. But so what we're showing here is the fence is kind of hugging the trails. So it, even though it looks a lot bigger, it's actually the same size as the existing bike park fence. If you were to take the fence and go around the trails of the existing bike park, you'd end up with a different area.
So is this fence to keep people out or fence just to keep
It's for
people
safety.
from wandering into the bike path?
Yeah, it's for safety, both of
So
those.
it can be a lower ornamental fence rather than big chain link fence.
Yeah.
Typically, it's gonna be a 6-foot high chain link fence. The black vinyl bit, typically, yeah. I mean, you could do a tube steel if you wanted, and you'd be spending.
I'm just wondering,
Which is why you
obviously, the
typically-
reason you have the fence is so kids don't wander in the path.
That's correct.
But can that be a 4-foot fence or something? I'm just curious.
That's all.
I'd have to say that I'm not a specialist on BMX tracks, but I can imagine myself hitting a 4-foot fence and doing a lot more damage to myself than a 6-foot fence. So
The only reason I raise these questions, Garrett's here, maybe he can start thinking about some of these things too. He knows a lot about this. Now, we're planning on doing this in addition to the bike park we have, or are we talking about removing the bike?
No,
park?
the bike path you have is now a parking lot.
Oh, that's in the parking lot. Okay. On the parking lot design, those were very long runs without a break. I would suggest that there be a break where the access road comes through, so that you have 3 entrances into there. So the road in the far left-hand bottom there, that should go through, in my opinion, and provide another access point. The same on the other, you need a break in the middle there. If people are looking for parking spaces, they got to circulate quite a distance to go back to a space that may be open, and they might back up and stuff. It'd be standard to break those into 2 segments. Okay. My opinion.
Can that be on
Otherwise,
the
it's a very
next,
good
can
plan.
that be on the part 2?
No, on a master plan.
Would you-
The other question
Is
I
this a
have
comment
is-
that you want incorporated into changing this prior to June 1st, or is it something that you think will happen in the next phase of the
Next phase.
Okay, great.
I capture that thought.
Yes.
And the other thing is it doesn't appear on either of these that you match the county's requirement for 50% shade after 15 years. You know, what's your plan on that?
I can guarantee you, based on the design design that we would match 50% in 15 years. There's no doubt in my mind, because I do a lot of this.
The trees.
We are not gonna have a problem meeting shade on this,
Okay.
but I understand, I know all about the shade requirements, and undoubtedly, you wouldn't be able to pull a permit and build this project without meeting that requirement.
Yeah,
At
I'm
the next
asking
stage
if
of
this recognize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. If the new bike park is the same size as the old bike park, why are we needing a new bike park? What was the rationale between turning the old one into parking versus putting in the store instead of making this area all parking and then just making improvements to the existing bike park?
So the one of the big requests was a lot more parking. And because we can't put that here, we can't,
It
I mean, we could, it
much
would be
higher
a lot
cost.
more expensive. But this area here doesn't have that lack of action
Non-soil
issue.
action.
Yeah, so we basically said, well, we'll take this area for parking and put the bike park here where it would be easier to develop.
Is that it? Great. I definitely want to hear any public comments, especially from Mr. McDermott. Essentially else.
Thank you for your indulgence.
You're welcome.
Good question. Do you want us to stay up here?
No.
Public comment?
Yeah, we're open to anybody that would like to speak on
I don't really have much to say. I think you guys did an amazing job. The design firm has. I went to the second one. I didn't go to the first public outreach meeting. My wife did with my kids. We had some people that came. I really haven't, rallied the troops to come in here like I've done before in the past for the last 4 years. I think we've done, I don't know how many meetings coming to this promoting the bike park. So I really like, the work they've done. One thing with this design, I'd like to mention too, how much parking do we need? I'm not sure it's really been discussed. Like Linda, Director Twine mentioned, why are we just relocating the bike park? Since it doesn't really add any space. So hopefully that can be something we can work on later on down the road and design how much of the bike park we're willing to give up. And that's something that I've always been willing to do. Like when I proposed doing that dirt pump track way back when, I'm like, hey, I don't mind having an asphalt pump track as long as we, do it over a big dirt lot area, make it big, make it exciting and big event that people can do. So, if the bike park has to go away and get relocated to make more parking, if that's necessary, that's fine. Even the intermediate area that we put in last year, that was always just a temporary solution until something could be decided for that area. So I know that we need more parking there, and I'm totally willing to, relocate the bike park to make everyone happy. Hopefully there could be some negotiation with keeping the pump track. I mean, cutting that in half that the existing bike park is. That's about all I got. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Can I ask you a question, Joyce?
Yes, sir.
Did you look at that from the point of view of bike paths to the bike park? Or was that part of your concern or interest when you reviewed?
I didn't
Remember how
really,
we talked about having paths where you could ride into the bike park from the neighborhoods?
I still see that. And hopefully this can come later. Another amenity to the bike park would be that perimeter cross-country bike trail. I met with Director Mounts out there, and originally we had wanted to go to the south, but because of the road crossings in front of the VFW, it made a good idea that we maybe go to the north. And the bike trails that connect to the southeast to get out into the Bluffs Trail, that would still be an amazing thing if we could incorporate some bike trails through there. Like I went on a site visit with Mr. Aho. We did a perimeter trail walk, and we also did. And those are very low cost things, and we're always willing to help contribute to the cost of developing more of those low cost options. But one thing I forgot to mention, like this design, and that's something I mentioned before in the past, this will enable me to go out for some of those grants too, to expand this bike park that I've been trying to do, but a lot of times in the grant, they're like, hey, has this space been approved for the bike park? And I'm like, oh, no. But now if it has been, then that enables me to really go after some of those grants. And hopefully we get the grant that Mr. Otto is going for. And if we do get the grants that I would like to get, a lot of that can go into the support of the bike park, actually paying for staff to do what I've done in the past, organize the events, to help do the clinics and stuff, and do the maintenance. That's where I see that grant money going towards it.
Awesome.
Do you see the bike park as being paved paths? Would it be dirt like it is now?
I'd like to do a combination of both. So that's why I wanted to talk about negotiating with not giving up the entire bike park that we have, because I like the idea of doing the pump track that we have now as a beginner area. Maybe keeping some of that intermediate area that we have for intermediate riders. And then the majority of that area is just being an asphalt pump track. And what I envision it being is like a place where we can have competitions and races, and even, you know, like there's a pump track world race, Red Bull pump track. It'd be great to have Fair Oaks on the map as one of those races. So it'd be an easy thing for us to maintain up there, and I think it'd look really nice.
Thank you.
Well, unless we get the grant to build everything, there's probably going to be a phasing in that will allow for things to be saved until such time as we finish the entire master plan.
Hey, Mike, what is the timeline that we would have on receiving any kind of information on this grant that we applied for?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Sean. He's got more of that information.
They don't actually promise any response time that I've been able to track down from work on previous grants that we've applied for in the past. I would say at the minimum be 4 to 6 months before we heard anything.
Got it.
But I don't have anything definite from the organization offering the grant.
This is a federal grant
This is the California State Land
or
and Water
state,
Conservation.
so we want to talk about.
It's actually fed. Land and Water Conservation is fed. It's administered through the state state park system. OGALS, it's called. Yeah.
All our representatives.
Any other comments?
One online.
No. Anybody?
Nope.
Yes.
So we do have one comment so far. Just a reminder for a person on the phone, if you do have a comment, please raise your hand by pressing *9. At the moment, Jamie, and I apologize on your last name, Werner, unmute you so you can make a 3-minute comment next. So Jamie, you'll just need to unmute yourself now.
Hi.
Okay, you can have your comment.
Okay, I'd like to know why the driveway is pointing towards my child's bedroom, and what about privacy for our family? And in addition to that, I'd like to oppose this concept 100%. As a resident on the park, there's going to be a massive fugitive dust issue. I would like to see all of your noise impact studies as well as your environmental impact report.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can go ahead and address them.
We don't have a preliminary plan.
I'm curious, what road are you talking about that points to your property? I can help you with that.
Yeah, it's your large driveway that is right across from my child's bedroom window. So all of these cars are going to be looking into his window.
So I believe Jamie's talking about this location.
Yeah, correct.
Jamie's house, I believe, is over here.
Yep, we got a bedroom right there with a child in it. So concerned about my family's safety and well-being.
Sure. Yeah, and there was no, I guess it's hard to answer a question that I don't think was necessarily a question. I mean, we didn't choose to design the entry or the exit so that it would be looking at your child's bedroom. That was not part of our design charge. We're simply trying to provide access to the parking lot and provide parking on the site. As we've talked about many times during this meeting, there'll be additional phases of this project if there's funding that gets secured through the grant, and the design is going to be refined and end up looking quite different in a lot of ways, and it's very possible that could change. In response to your other question about the fugitive dust and some of the other things, I don't know the status of the current EIR for this park. I assume that if this gets, Mike, you might be able to add to this. If this is something that gets adopted and grant funding happens, I don't know if this particular area would have to go through that process again. Can you add to that?
Yeah, I think I can. And from my understanding is we will have to do an impact study for it. And it's also going to be our sound, our noise, the dust issue. It'll also revolve around construction and also revolve around all those other elements that have to be done through this process. So it'll happen just as it happened in Village Plaza Park. Once the design is completed, that final design that we're starting to take into permitting, that's when those improvements or those studies basically are incorporated into it. At least that was our experience with Village Plaza Park at the last project.
So that environmental process is where people would talk about what mitigation measures they would address.
Yeah, and it's systematic. I mean, it's systematically done when you do it. It's we had when we did the noise study for Village Plaza Park, we actually had the decibels gauged so we would know how much sound would potentially be escaping from the site and how far away that sound was escaping. And so we actually had to go that far with it. I suspect, depending on what we're doing here, we may have that same issue.
Yeah, and also just to add, we're working on our park in Folsom right now. It's going through this very process. We presented and the master plan was approved. It's now going through the EIR process. We're waiting. Any day now, we're going to hear what those results are, and we know that we're going to have to respond to them. If anything comes up that requires mitigation specific to any of the concerns, the design will have to change. It's just part of the law, and that's part of the process. So those will be incorporated into the next stages of the design, just like many other comments.
Just out of curiosity, how many feet distance that would be? I would say it's about 300 feet. I've seen, I know Jamie sent a couple of emails. I know where she lives because of that. It's when I spoke earlier about being cautious about this is the person I was specifically referring to. I bet she still has concerns, but we have done everything we can do at this stage of the process.
Well, yeah, noise and light intrusion are things that would be addressed as mitigation measures if they're determined to be, significant, right? Not significant in the legal sense, but environmental.
Yes.
We have one more comment. Adrian, you can go ahead and unmute yourself now.
Oh, thank you for hearing me. I did attend the May 2nd meeting, and I appreciate the effort that the board, the district, and the design group from Wilson Design has done. I see a lot of potential for Phoenix Park. It's a beautiful park. It's a rural park, and it currently addresses many demographic and different groups. And I love all the features that are there. I'm particularly interested in Area B. I think the parking area, it's needed. I think 2 exits should be there. I think you should preserve a central shade aisle in that very hot lot in the summer and late spring, as you know. Pavers are an excellent suggestion as opposed to a sealed surface in that parking lot. I also think that in Area B, considering the past history of the soil and the product that has been delivered there from the county and I understand the improvements from along Hazel, you should just develop that into more of a natural area. Keep it treed and pathed with benches. Just make it a nice buffer between the existing bike park and the residents there in that nice community to the west of that area. In the existing bike park, you just put in a beautiful shade structure this past year, and a good group of dedicated people, a cool crew came in, and I watched this as I walk there daily, put in an expansion to the bike park And they did a great job compacting soil, compacting their special trucked in earth to make a very fun bike park there. And I think the best idea for you, and economically speaking, is to preserve that existing area of the bike park. Maybe make it a little more challenging. I don't know. I'm not that familiar with it, but I know that I have young grandchildren that like the first part of the bike park. I think you should consider keeping that age appropriate, dividing it in two for the big, those folks that are really into it, and the beginners. And a lot of joy is brought to those little tykes in that existing park there. You're doing a great job. I think you should conserve the rural nature of this park, and I appreciate your allowing me to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That's a wrap. Anybody else? Directors have another comment?
So one final thought, how are we going to write the grant in such a way that it is appealing to the land and water conservation criteria? Can you summarize the elements that this brings to them, make it compelling to them to fund?
I can touch on that a little bit. They have guidelines that it's an acronym which is SCORP, and I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what that means. But we want to talk about it a little bit afterwards. The outdoor shade structures, the playground, the bike park. The parking isn't as hot of an item for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, but it is acceptable as support for other amenities. The walking trails are also another good feature for them. The seating areas are good for them. What they're primarily concerned with is outdoor recreation opportunities, which primarily what we have here are the bike park and playground. The parking lot area A doesn't really have a lot that fits up to that, but if we rest our laurels on area B, you can see funding for that. Then,
the other important piece, Sean, if I may, that Land and Water looks at is expanding your usable space for recreational opportunities. And since this area B has not been utilized in the park, it moves it very high up the acceptable list for Land and Water Conservation Funds, because we're basically expanding the park, and we're expanding it for recreational purposes.
It seems too, area A settles the dust and that kind of, and just thinking back to some kind of permeable pavement, that might enhance the application too.
Do you think, though, that the fact that we're taking out a bike park, to put in a bike park, it's kind of a wash, like they'll see that and see, okay, they're putting in a bike park, they took out a bike park, and all they're doing is adding parking?
It could, and it's a fair statement. It's hard to read their minds on it, but we are actually adding additional amenities, improving the playgrounds, and all those other items. We are addressing the fact that the informal parking negatively impacts the actual uses of the park as it currently stands. So there's informal parking that happens during those busy times is definitely a detriment to the overall park.
And are we writing that persuasively?
We haven't finished writing the grant, but I'm definitely we're going to talk immensely about in the grant about how this is improving the usages of the park as well expanding it. Yeah.
Park staff is preparing the grant. Consultants, do they have a role in that?
They help us with the amenity piece of it throughout that time. They've seen some of these grants too, so I'm sure they'll be working with us during the edit process.
The process is pretty formulaic. It's usually checking boxes in a large way. You have limited space to wax poetic and tell your story, but it is important. So we'll make sure we see that and we help with that as well.
We have 500 words or less for our project.
We've done a lot of this with Prop 68. It's the same thing.
How big is that fitness area that you have put in there in your F?
Oh, on F, I'd have to, so on this particular plan, you're seeing 6,500 square foot for the play area, the yellow, it's about half that. So I'm saying it's probably 3,000 to 4,000.
square feet.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity,
There's lots of variances in there depending on what you want to do.
how many pickleball courts would that equal?
Oh God, I don't have the square footage. Wow, 30 by 60, do math on that for me. It's probably about half, it's probably one pickleball court. Yeah,
Would
it's probably
we-
one.
In this master plan, how close do we have to stay? Like, because for instance, I'm not a fan of doing the fitness thing. I don't think we should do that. I think it's gonna be pretty antiquated and we've seen a lot of parks not having those. So how close are we gonna have to stay to keeping?
To keeping the fitness
Yeah.
element, it's literally just a line item on the overall master plan.
So that could be amended, adjusted.
Absolutely, yeah, it could be changed to parkours, it could be sized down to be one smaller moment. I mean, when you ask about square footage for one of those things, it could be the size of this room, or it could be the size quarter of the room. Yeah.
And then, was solar at all considered in this? Like,
Well, we did have a good conversation about it. It's not out of the equation for this project. It would definitely be something we would look for outside funding sources to help develop that. It's like the EV charging for us. We believe that we can apply for those outside funding sources to match up our money that we're putting into the hard surface area. For an example, then with the overhead, if that's what we went to, an overhead solar collector, if that's the process we used. So we have the match, and now it's just a matter of saying, are those types of funds available, and then should we apply for them, and then what type of solar are we looking for? Are we looking for the large scale? Are we looking for a smaller scale? Hard to say, but and again, that's same with EV charging, same thing, exact same thing.
I do think that the district should be considering, especially to get the funds to both the EV as well as solar.
Exactly, yeah.
The parking lot would be nice. It doesn't have to be all night.
Correct?
All right, any more questions?
I will make a motion to approve. I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
So the only
Thank you for your
comment
good work.
that I would make is just living here my entire life, growing up playing Little League out there. It is a very rural nature park. I personally don't see a big advantage to putting pickleball or basketball into a place we're not going to have lighting in or anything like that. But I think like the bike park and everything else is awesome. Good job.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to receive and file the village park outreach. Nothing to motion for receive and file that, correct? We will move on to item 7.4, discussion and possible action on approval of purchase of a new holiday tree.
I move approval.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's follow the process and hear the reason why. I heard a little bit before. The other one was damaged and.
No, down. We need to replace.
Yeah, well, I'd like to hear that first before we just jump to a vote.
You didn't know that?
No, I just overheard a little bit what you were talking about before the meeting.
Be very quick.
Okay. Staff report.
John Ventura, Parks and Facilities Manager. January, we had a huge wind event. It toppled our holiday tree despite its anchoring. It bent the steel frame, damaged the branches. We've identified potential funding sources, primarily FEMA's disaster relief funds, as it was declared a federal disaster. So we're trying to access those funds, but we need to get a tree to be able to reimburse by that.
Right.
Plus, we don't have a tree for this holiday season, so we'd like to get one purchased in time for it to be delivered so that we can hold Christmas in the village.
So we're gonna purchase it, hope that insurance or FEMA covers it. That's the idea.
Yes, we received assurances from my caseworker at FEMA that says just it's a completed project. Give me the invoice.
Okay.
We'll.
Good enough for me.
I have a quick question. Was the original tree also from the St. Nick's company?
It was not. The original company we bought it from does not make that 30-foot tall tree anymore.
It just sounds like the original one had some mechanical problems, so I didn't.
It was not.
I'm glad you included
It was
vendor.
not
Thank
an
you.
indoor outdoor tree.
That was a cooperative purchase,
What was
just like
it?
a chamber or
The staff
something.
report, I think 25 different bids. So they did a pretty thorough job.
No, that's great.
Okay,
Do we need to,
no further discussion on my part.
So we have a motion.
Wait, I have one more question. I'm sorry. Who's gonna pick out the colors? Is staff gonna pick out the colors for the tree?
I was gonna throw darts at a wall. No, I'm just kidding. We were gonna just bounce it around amongst us. I'm open to.
Colored lights, not just light.
Yeah, multicolored lights is what I would like to go for rather than just plain white. And there's a couple of ornament packages. I believe they were in the package there, so please feel free to send in feedback.
7 year. No more questions.
motion here? We need to be,
I think we have a motion on the floor.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Excellent. Moving on to 7.5, discussion and possible action on approval of the Land and Water Conservation Fund Board resolution.
Once again, Sean Ventura. This is a bit of a formality. In February, you approved us to go after that Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. This is just approving the resolution that says the board has approved us to go after that grant. It's part of the application package, so we cannot apply for it unless we have this.
Motion to approve. I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
You need a roll call vote for the specific one and called out in the resolution. So I'll do roll call vote.
Okay.
Director Mounts,
Aye.
Director Carhart,
Aye.
Director Irwin,
Aye.
Director O'Farrell,
Aye.
Director Tenny.
Aye.
All.
I just want to point out that after we have a motion in a second, there's always part of the process is discussion before we jump to a vote. So I'd like to remember that. Sometimes we have things to say.
Okay. Duly noted. Item number 8, we are now going to move into the 125th Fair Oaks Recreation Foundation regular board directors meeting without dismissing our current board meeting. We need,
Motion to accomplish that.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Foundation business election of year 22, 23, 24 Fair Oaks Recreation Foundation Board of Directors election.
Yes, so this item typically you follow your current board structure, meaning that you're chair of the board, then becomes the chair of the foundation. And that's what is attached here. So the chair will be
I read that.
announced and so on.
So, a motion to our
Move
traditional.
Move to elect the Fair Oaks Recreation Foundation Board of Directors as shown in attachment A.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then where are we at? Item 2, to approve the minutes of the Fair Oaks Recreation Foundation Board meeting, January 18th, 2023.
I move to approve the minutes unless there are any questions or comments.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2.8.2-3, approval of transfer of funds from the Fair Oaks Youth Advisory Board account to the Fair Oaks Recreation and Parks District General Fund account.
I'll move to recognize resolution number 05-1723-02.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, I'm sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
Mary, I think you'll need to answer. I just want to make sure that on the financial analysis, it shows, it says that the revenues were 4,500 and then the expenditures were 1,800, but then 1,800 has to be reimbursed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Which way is it, what are the directions that they're going?
Yeah, so all of our revenues go directly to the foundation account. All of our expenses are paid out through the district, so those funds then get reimbursed back to the district to make up for it.
So that's what's going back to the district. Correct. Okay, so is the 4,500, was it 4,500 total, and then you're subtracting 1,800 from that 4,500 and sending that to the district?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. That was my only question.
Moving on to 8.2.4, receive and file foundation financial report. Move forward to 8.2.5, which will get a motion here to adjourn our Fair Oaks Recreation Foundation meeting and return to Fair Oaks Recreation and Parks District Board of Directors meeting.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 9, board and staff reports. Do items from the board of directors.
All I want to say is the dinner in the garden was a huge success, and thanks to Raymond, thanks for, to the staff, to the sponsors, to the Horticultural Society. I mean, it was fab. The next year, we need to figure out a little bit more the food. That's all I'm going to say, but it was fabulous. It should be an annual event.
What was wrong with the food?
Too little.
Oh, okay, the amount.
No, I agree with John. It was an excellent event, and I was so impressed with the MC, Raymond James. He did such a professional job, and the event was wonderful.
I saw the pictures on the great.
Even better in person, wasn't it?
It was.
Fortunately, I have too much stuff going on with graduation. Right? Midweek stuff. Okay, anything else from the directors?
Well, I expressed before the board meeting my concern, having visited the site of our construction. We have 2 beautiful old oak trees, one near the parking lot is going to the community basement, and one that's up on the west side of the clubhouse. And they're not being protected adequately. I'm really worried that we're going to lose them in the next 2 years because we're not following proper protocol of fencing them off at the drip line, not parking equipment, not stockpiling materials, not driving a lot of vehicles or trenching in that area. If you want to kill the trees, we're doing it right now. So it's not too late to make the contractor get back to the specs. I'm very, very passionate about that.
Ralph, have you discussed this with
I've
staff?
discussed it with Mike, before kind of meeting.
Mike, is there going to be some movement on that? Director Carr, it's really riled up.
Yeah, no, we have a construction meeting tomorrow with our team, and so I was just messaging Sean while we're talking to go ahead and bring that up to the team tomorrow morning. So we will address it tomorrow morning in the construction meeting.
Contractor, but if he doesn't make some decisions there, I'll send the county tree coordinator out and try to get some better enforcement.
Well, it seems to me that would be a violation of the permit. Right?
That's a good question. I don't know if we have a permit specific to the trees, but our specifications are clear and the county's rules are clear.
Right.
And if you kill the trees, I mean, there's a big penalty that somebody will have to pay or should pay. Probably won't have to.
I agree with
to
you,
see
Ralph. I
them
mean, that
lost.
is very important to that part. I mean, it's important everywhere, but especially to that part. They don't want to lose big oaks.
Those trees have been that size in the 50 years I've lived here. And I don't want to see them go.
Okay, sounds like we have a positive momentum on that. Anything else? All right, we'll move on to items from staff.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and Ian, did you have anything?
No.
Okay. And Sean, I believe you have something on the big day of service.
Sean Ventura, Parks and Facilities Manager. Just wanted to give you a brief update on May 6th. We participated in the Fair Oaks and Orangevale Big Day of Service. We had approximately 20 volunteers come out to the site that the district hosted, which was over at the La Vista Ball Fields. We thought we would do a little bit of work out there to help American River Girls softball have a nicer group of fields to play on. We did some tree trimming. We cleared weeds off of the infields. We replaced benches. We replaced backboards. We are just finalizing the extra work that came out of that volunteer day tomorrow morning, and everything should be back up and running. I want to just say it was a really great day. We had a lot of people who were not related to American River Girls softball whatsoever come out. So just the community wanted to help, and it was great. It was a feel-good event for everybody. Any questions?
Great, thank you.
Good.
And then I think Nick has some more information on the garden dinner. Maybe just a quick outline on it, what happened? Or summary, not outline, sorry.
That's correct. Good evening, board of directors. Nick Davis, recreation manager. I have a brief slideshow to show you guys real quick while I can pop that up before I get going here. Cool. So you gotta go to the next page. So I know you guys talked briefly about your time there at the event that we had this past Saturday, but I wanted to highlight a few things, plus some financials. So some of the event highlights here was the Fizz Wall that Raymond James blessed us with, and keepsake glass that all attendees got to take home with them. Appetizers were provided by Shangri-La. And what was really cool is the Master Gardeners were out there volunteering their time to educate people that were walking through the garden, doing the garden tour in the happy hour time frame of the event. So it was really neat to hear people say, oh, I didn't even know this garden was even here. And they got the education on what the Master Garden program is all about and what they do over there, because they do a lot of great things that is really not known by as many people as it should be known by. So that was really cool. We had live music. We had a single acoustic artist, and then as well as a 3-piece band. We had a catered dinner by Bella Brew. And then we had art doors designed by 5 local artists that were auctioned off at the dinner. And all of them did sell, so that was awesome. And then a charity fundraiser where people got to buy chairs and or risers for Black Box Theater. Here's a few pictures of the event, setup of the tables, some of the appetizers by Shangri-La, and then the Fizz Wall there. Moving on, a few more pictures. Credit to Mary Stokely for these wonderful photos. She did take all of them. So here's the expenses and revenues, and so we ended up netting $15,434.70 on the event. So overall, I'd say it was a great success. As John was saying, there's always things we can improve on, especially for a first-time event. So we're going to take that feedback that we have received, which has been very, very positive overall, and make sure the events are better next year. Any questions on that slide before we move on? Last is just recognition. We had a volunteer committee of 8 people. I'm not sure if they anticipated to work volunteer as many hours as they did going into it, but they pretty much gave up every Wednesday and beyond that doing actual tasks for the last 4 or 5 months to help put this garden dinner on. So I definitely want to thank them for all of their efforts, because it would not have gone on without their commitment and their time put into it. And also, again, the Master Gardeners for being out there and educating the attendees on the Horticultural Center. And then, of course, our sponsors and our partners that were there. And then lastly, FRPD staff. As many of you know, it kind of changed halfway through. Previous staff and the Arts and Entertainment Department were working on this. And then due to the departure of that staff member, slack had to be picked up by somebody. So 2 people I stepped up the most is Sabrina Bernardo and Mary Stokely. I don't think it would have been nearly as successful if they just stepped in and do what they did. They did a tremendous effort. And there was other people that helped as well. A lot of Parks Department and some other staff did help too. But really, it was their heavy lift. So that's just all I have for that one. Any questions on that?
Just want to thank you again, being on the committee and working with our incredible staff. I mean, we were so blessed that they really came together because it was, would not have happened without you guys. We're very grateful, and we raised, I think, a pretty good amount of money for our first time. And the numbers, that was like 18 chairs on average, which I think is pretty great. I mean, I think it was pretty darn good for the first time. So they all deserve to applaud.
Only bad part was cocktail casual on 94 degrees.
Yeah, it's all warm that day.
Next time.
I have to say, I sat next to a couple that I did not know, and we introduced ourselves by just, exchanging names. I didn't say how associated with the park district. And one of the first things the woman that was sitting next to me said was, "Have you ever met Mary Stokely?" Well, I was on the wait list. I didn't think I was going to get tickets, and she called me yesterday, and I was so impressed with how kind she was and how she went out of her way to help us. And it was, they were ecstatic to be there. They had been waitlisted, and then got the call from Mary. And so I just thought it was just really nice to hear this couple talk so highly of her staff. Thank you, Mary.
Never heard of her.
Kind of piggyback on that comment, I didn't miss it in my little presentation there. We did sell out 112 tickets, and we had a wait list of 46 tickets.
Wow.
To get into the event. So that's just 46 people or 46 tickets that were on the wait list. I'm sure people saw that it was full and decided not to put their name on the wait list.
Yeah.
So that just shows you how much that event was a success. People want to be a part of it. Any other questions on that? All right, I got one more item. It's a bittersweet announcement, but I'm announcing that Recreation Supervisor Chelsea Adams has accepted a position with Mission Oaks Parks and Recreation, and she will be with us here now until she'll be with us until Wednesday of next week, the 31st of May. So I've had a great opportunity to work with Chelsea over the years. She's had a huge impact on the district and the community. Overall, she spent 13 and a half-ish years with us, 5 as a part-time staff person, and then 8 and a half full-time. She has enriched the lives of so many people in this community, so many of the youth. I would say hundreds to thousands of people that she has impacted through her programs and the preschool and all that she does. Chelsea and I shared a cubicle wall for 8 years. I got to know Chelsea, the professional and the individual Chelsea, and I will let you know, or both are equally as great. I'll miss working alongside Chelsea, except for having to listen to her beloved punk rock music every December. Other than that, Chelsea's been absolutely amazing to work with. I'm sad to see her leave, but I'm happy for her to take this opportunity to grow as a professional and take on new challenges. Mission Oaks Park District is very lucky to have you. One thing before you go, I want to make sure you received from us one last time. To give you guys some context, when she works with vendors, software companies, or partner groups, she's always been awarded either a virtual or verbal gold star. And it's happened more than once. It's kind of been a constant that she gets a gold star. So before you leave us, I want to make sure you get one last gold star.
Thank you, Nick.
Now my wall. I'll let Chelsea have a moment.
So I'm going to be brief because if I'm not, I'll get emotional. I thought I could stand up here today and say all the things I'm thankful for, but instead I wrote a letter to the district as if I was speaking as an old oak tree. So,
Like it already.
Dear Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District, imagine me as a seed. Yep, I said it, I'm the seed. I'm the seed you took a chance on 14 years ago. Frustrating it on. Every day, month, year, you took care and looked after me. You watered me with mentorship. You provided me with light through knowledge. You pruned me with challenges and opportunities I never dreamed possible. You believed in me. Through the years I grew. I grew into the wonderful tree you see in front of you here today. Each branch on my tree is a person who has helped me along my journey. You and the board of directors before you, Mike and the district administrators before him, my supervisors, my teammates, my support staff, the community, and my family. Each leaf you see on my branches represents a piece of knowledge, a story, a moment, a success, a failure, a person, an opportunity I was given because you trusted and you cared for me. So to you, I am forever grateful. I am rooted here. This will forever be my home, no matter where I am. And I thank you very much. If you want to keep that.
It won't be too long and you'll be a heritage of. Better be a really good promotion.
For me, I just see it as a way for me to continue to hone my skills and share my knowledge with the new community that I could serve. So thank you very much. And I mean it. Thank you to everybody. I would not be here without you.
Sad news, and even more members of the board, but I know how integral into our district and just with those shining lights. So we appreciate everything you've done.
Not gonna be far. You'll see me.
Continuing on with items from staff.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, and I just also want to chime in with Chelsea just shortly, real quickly. One of the best employees, wonderful heart and wonderful asset to the community, is a hard loss. And but I do, and I know the staff, and I know the board on the community, which is very well. So I want to take that moment to thank him. And then also just as I want to reiterate what you all said about the garden dinner. What a wonderful group, from the volunteers to the staff and for the board members showing up and supporting the program in a variety of different levels. So thank you all. And then a couple of updates I have here. The manager position for the arts and entertainment, we're in the final stages of that. We are getting prepared to offer a position, and we probably will be doing that this week still, if everything goes well. And we did tell the candidates that we would let them know Friday, so everything seems to be still going in that within that time frame. But anyway, we will inform you of the final once that is made. And then a construction update. The building's up. I mean, you're seeing the building. We've been inside a couple of times, the amphitheater building. We're seeing the electrical work, the AC work going, the plumbing work going inside. So there's a lot of stuff happening inside the facility as well as outside. And so you're seeing the outside. The inside is a little hidden, of course, right now, and it'll be hidden. And this is the phase right now that we're working on that will be all covered up, and you won't recognize how much work it was. But it is a ton of work, and they're doing a great job with it. The other big project that's happening in there now is that we are going to get a estimation for a solution for the drainage that we've had, drainage problems we've had on the backside of the clubhouse, the community clubhouse. We're working toward a solution that has a warranty. I think that's important. I'm not excited to do a, well, this might work type of thing, because it's rather expensive. And if we have to dig it back up, if we were wrong, that expense is going to be immense as well. So we're hoping to get a warranty on it. I know that that's what they're seeking, and we should hopefully be seeing that by the next meeting. And then before we put that asphalt down in the back, or the concrete down in the back, that we will have that solution in place. It's substantial. I mean, but it has to be fixed. So just letting you all know. Site furnishings arrived. It's arrived. We put the order in for the chairs and the risers. The risers are getting custom built. These risers are for the black box theater. So we have chairs on a tiered system inside. Those are custom built, and they are now in production. They will be shipping in November, and pretty close. We're pretty close to having them here, or pretty close to having them at the time we open. So we're a little stressed, but that's the quickest we can get them done. And it's still 2 months before we need them, but I stress over these things because so many things can go wrong as we go forward. But we are working diligently on it, and we have the order in. And site, like I said, site furnishings have arrived already, and we're storing those. And now it's just the black box and the chairs, and then the AV equipment that we'll be ordering. So
Hey,
that's
Mike,
the update. Yeah.
are the risers built in or are they portable in the back room?
Good question. Yes, they're portable. So we can take them down. Now it's not a hey, let's do this half hour before the show takedown, but we can take them down. It's about a half day's worth of work to put them up and take them down type of thing. So.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from staff?
That is it, I believe.
Second.
Any discussion on Green? That's it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.